By the end of this video, you'll be able to create a perfect preloader for a website. I published an article earlier this month on my workflow in creating delightful web experiences. It's titled 12 Principles of Web Animation. I plan to go over every principle in this series while recreating an amazing website and exploring at least one other different animation library, starting with the first, Preload. The website we'll be recreating is this one from Buttermax. It's the 2022 Wrapped for Spotify artists. Let's break down everything that happens here. First, the progress counter. This counts from 0 to 100 and the colors change after every 25. It also has a text below. When the counter gets to 100, the count slides up on itself in a staggered way and the other text disappears after. Then a couple of large different colored texts that say 2022 enters from the right in a staggered way while moving up, and they leave through the left shortly. A similar thing happens just after, but this time it's the Spotify Wrapped hashtag and much smaller. And then we have this incredible 2.5D pattern that introduces itself and settles as a part of the screen. And the rest of the contents of the post loader slides up from itself. That's the artist's name, the information, and the call to action. Now we can start building. Let's set up our project and clone it locally. To be able to create a perfect loader, the actual page is important, so let's create a temporary one. Basically some divs with different colors. Also, we need something worth preloading to justify the loader, so let's add some assets to the page. Finally, let's make the page inactive while it's loading. We could just disable the scroll. Let's create the preloader component and use it. We want to ensure this is fixed and it covers the whole screen. Let's create the counter next, which starts from 0, and style it. We need to show it only when the component has mounted. Because we already plan to stagger it at some point, let's create a span for every digit. I'm also going to add some specific width manipulations so the pairing of the letters are always looking good. We have these 3 expressions that help us to extract the hundreds, the 10 and the unit digit from the count. And we are also storing the value as an attribute so we can easily hide anyone that is 0. Next, let's create a function in the onMount to take the count from 0 to 100. We'll be using the request animation frame and exiting when it gets to 100. We noted earlier that the colors were supposed to change after every 25. Let's create a ref to track it. In the update function, we need to change the value of the ref when it gets to a new phase. Let's also add the phase to the preloader as an attribute and style it based on that. There is also a little info we need to add below the counter. Instead of making the counter just count, let's tie this to an actual loader. We need to create an array of all the assets we want to preload, create a for loop, and for each iteration, we fetch the assets, simulate a longer load for this demo specifically, and increase the target towards 100%. Now, in the request animation frame, we are going to be increasing the count towards the target at every frame. When the count gets to 100, we need to run the onPreloaded function, which basically runs a Gsap timeline. After half a second, we want to slide up the numbers staggeredly and fade out the text shortly later. The next thing in the preloading sequence is the array of text that slide in and out. The first of them is the year 2022. Let's create the markup for it and style it. We need to give each of the spans a different color and background. Let's also replicate everything we did on the year for the tag too. For the animation of the year and the tag, we are going to be using Theatre.js. Theatre.js is a JavaScript animation library and at the same time could be a professional motion design tool. It has this amazing dope sheet just like After Effects and the rest where you could plan timing, keyframes, movement, action, sound, camera across a timeline. It's literally a perfect design tool. I would say the major difference between Theatre and the other popular motion design tools like Rise and Lottie is that in Theatre, we are not animating things created in those tools, we are animating the elements of the website itself. It could be the HTML element, CSS and JavaScript object properties, or even more complex stuff like 3D objects in WebGL or the camera. But we need to set up the GUI that enables this ourselves. We'll start by installing the core and the studio packages from Theatre.js. The studio specifically enables the motion design GUI when we initialize it, and the core controls every other thing. We need to initialize our project just like we would in any MoGraph app or tool, and after that create our timeline, which is called a sheet here. Let's then select all our years and tags, map through them and create an object for each of them. An object is basically an animatable entity in the sheet with a unique name. We want to be able to animate the X, the Y and probably the opacity too. When these values change, we want to map the changes back to our HTML elements. So let's map through the elements again and do that, updating the transform and the opacity. Back in our website, we can see our objects and properties. We need to open up the sequence to be able to create our animations. We just create our keyframes on the properties we want to animate, update their values and timing, and even events so we get something that looks perfect. When we are done with crafting our animations, we need to export the state. This exports a JSON file that we could feed back into our code when creating the project. We just need to specify the state of the project. Since we are done with the dope sheet, we can hide the GUI by removing the studio initialization. And we finally need to make our sequence play in our preloaded after confirming it's ready to play. The next thing in the preloading sequence is the graphics that reveals the artist's cover photo. There are a couple of things going on here. In the original websites, they most likely used Lottie to create the effect, so we'll be doing something similar. A Lottie is a JSON-based animation file format that allows designers to shape high-quality animations on any platform as easily as static assets. We could have a file like this, and when we put it in a Lottie player, we get an animation like this, which we can still manipulate and extend in real time. I already got a couple of files that are similar to theirs and extracted some from the original website, so we'll just use them. But if you are trying to create one yourself, you would need a tool like LottieLab, LottieFiles or After Effects, which allows you to create and edit Lottie animations. I specifically use LottieFiles a lot. It has the largest collection of already made LottieFiles, and you can still create and edit your Lottie animations there. I'm going to install this vanilla Lottie player library. It gives us access to this web component, which is amazing. Web components are custom, reusable, encapsulated HTML tags we can use in websites. They are framework agnostic and work in any modern browser. We are going to create our wrapper and put all our animations. We want the second one to loop back and forth. And we also want to add the artist's cover photo. In the styling, we want to make this fixed, stack all our assets and hide them by default. In the preloaded animation, we need to unhide our Lotties, map through each of them and play. We could also manually rotate the third one. Next, we need to reveal our cover photo, scale and move the whole thing to the right. The final part is revealing the other details. Let's create the markup for them. That's the Spotify for Artists logo, the artist's name, the CTA and other texts. We need to break down this text into words so it's easier to stagger. Then we move to the styling. Make everything absolute and a column flex. Style the heading, the text and the button. For the button, we need to create a hover animation using scale, clip art, color and background. Since we are going to be adding a tilt effect, we need to set up perspective on the parent elements of the things we are tilting. At the end of the timeline, we are going to do a final call that activates the effect. We listen to the mouse move, manipulate the coordinates to always get a value between minus 0.5 and 0.5. Then we use the start coordinate to rotate our object slightly based on the mouse movement. Making sure our details are hidden by default, we now need to animate them in. For the big text, it should slide up from itself, the small text too, but the words need to be staggered. The button should appear, the logo should unravel, and the footer should slide up. And in just a couple of minutes, we have a preloader that gets the work done and prepares the user for an amazing, delightful web experience. See you in the next video. I've been a real one. 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 I've been alive in the driver's seat. Never talk down on the prophecy. Put that on God, ain't no stopping me. Put that on God, 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 God.